It was an ordinary morning when Sarah, a hard-working mother of two, prepared to leave for work. As she gathered her belongings, she glanced at her 8-year-old daughter, Emily, who was sitting quietly at the breakfast table. Emily had always been a bright and cheerful child, but lately, she had become unusually withdrawn. Sarah had noticed her daughter's change in behavior but assumed it was just a phase. With a warm smile, she leaned down to kiss Emily goodbye. But the moment she turned to leave, Emily clutched her arm tightly and whispered words that sent chills down Sarah's spine, "Don't leave me alone with my dad." Sarah froze. The words rang in her ears, heavy with an unspoken fear. She pulled back and looked into Emily's wide, frightened eyes. Something wasn't right. A wave of confusion washed over her. Her husband, Mark, had always been a loving father, or so she believed. But the sheer panic in Emily's voice was undeniable. Was she just having a bad dream? Or was there something much darker hidden beneath those words? Sarah's mind raced as she tried to make sense of what was happening. Instead of brushing it off, she crouched down and gently asked, "Why, sweetheart? Did something happen?" Emily hesitated, her small hands trembling. But before she could answer, Mark entered the room, his usual composed demeanor unchanged. He ruffled Emily's hair and said, "She's just being dramatic." Sarah forced a smile, but her heart pounded. Something told her she needed to find out the truth. Looking back, Sarah realized there had been subtle signs, things she hadn't given much thought to at the time. Emily had started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night crying. She had become unusually quiet, avoiding eye contact whenever her father spoke. At first, Sarah had assumed it was just school stress or childhood anxiety. But now, Emily's plea made her see everything in a new light. Her daughter had also begun refusing to be alone with her father. She would insist on sleeping with her bedroom door locked and flinch at unexpected touch. At family gatherings, she stayed close to Sarah, as if seeking protection. The signs were there all along, but Sarah had been too busy to notice them fully. The weight of guilt began to settle in. How could she not have seen it sooner? Determined to understand what was wrong, Sarah decided to take action. That night, when Mark was asleep, she sat by Emily's bed and whispered, "You can tell me anything, sweetheart. I'm always here for you." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She hesitated before finally uttering, "I don't feel safe, Mom." That was all Sarah needed to hear. She knew she couldn't ignore this any longer. Sarah's first instinct was to go straight to the school counselor. The next morning, she made an excuse to take Emily out of school for the day and drove to a nearby child psychologist. She needed someone who could help her understand what was happening, someone Emily could talk to in a safe space. During the session, Emily hesitated at first but gradually opened up. While she didn't explain everything in detail, her words painted a troubling picture. She expressed fear, discomfort, and a strong desire not to be alone with her father. The psychologist didn't push her for details but assured Sarah that her daughter's fear was real and shouldn't be ignored. Hearing this, Sarah's stomach turned. Could she have been living with a man she never truly knew? Was she failing her daughter by not acting quickly enough? The thought made her nauseous, but she knew one thing for certain: Emily came first. The psychologist advised Sarah to observe carefully, document any strange behavior, and most importantly, never leave Emily alone with Mark until they uncovered the truth. That evening, Sarah kept a closer watch on Mark. She paid attention to his interactions with Emily, noting even the smallest details. Had she been so blinded by love and routine that she had ignored the obvious? She noticed how Emily would stiffen whenever he entered the room. The way she tried to stay out of his reach. The way her smiles seemed forced when he was around. To keep things calm, Sarah didn't confront him directly. Instead, she reached out to her best friend, Lisa, who was a family lawyer. Lisa urged her to trust her instincts and reminded her that protecting Emily was the priority. She also suggested reporting her concerns to the authorities, just to ensure everything was handled properly. But Sarah hesitated. What if she was wrong? What if this was just a misunderstanding? Accusing her husband of something so serious could destroy their family. But at the same time, what if she was right? Could she live with herself if she ignored her daughter's pleas? That night, as Sarah sat beside Emily in their temporary home, she felt the weight of uncertainty pressing on her. She had left behind everything she had built with Mark, their home, their life together, the stability she had once taken for granted. But none of that mattered anymore. All that mattered was getting to the truth and ensuring her daughter was safe. She took a deep breath and held Emily's hand. "Sweetheart, I need you to be honest with me. I know something is wrong, and I promise you, whatever it is, I'll always believe you." Sarah's voice was calm, but inside, she was bracing herself for whatever was about to come. Emily hesitated. Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to speak. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said words that shattered Sarah's world. What she described wasn't just discomfort, it was fear, deep-rooted and overwhelming. It was something no child should ever have to experience. Sarah felt her breath catch, her stomach twist in knots. A cold rage mixed with sorrow swelled inside her. She had lived with Mark for years, trusted him, shared a life with him. And yet, her daughter had been suffering in silence under the same roof. Sarah hugged Emily tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you ever again." At that moment, she made a vow: she would fight for her daughter, no matter what it took. The very next morning, Sarah contacted both the authorities and a child protection agency. Every part of her wanted to scream at Mark, to demand answers, to confront him face to face. But she knew that anger alone wouldn't protect Emily. She had to do things the right way, to build a case, to ensure that justice would be served. The process wasn't easy. Investigators asked Emily questions, trying to piece together the truth without pressuring her. Social workers got involved, and the legal system started moving at a frustratingly slow pace. Meanwhile, Mark was adamant in his denial. He insisted that Emily was just being overly sensitive, that Sarah was overreacting, that this was all a misunderstanding. He painted himself as the victim, trying to turn family and friends against her. But Sarah didn't care what anyone thought. She had heard Emily's words, seen the fear in her eyes. That was all she needed to know. She refused to be swayed by guilt, manipulation, or doubt. She had already wasted too much time questioning herself. Now, her only priority was ensuring Emily's safety and justice. Sarah also found comfort in support groups for parents who had been through similar experiences. There, she met mothers and fathers who had fought against the same horrors, who had battled skepticism and legal roadblocks but had ultimately protected their children. Their stories gave her strength, reminding her that she was not alone in this fight. Through it all, Emily slowly started to regain her confidence. She began therapy sessions with a child psychologist, who helped her process her trauma. She still had bad days, days where she barely spoke, where the weight of fear and confusion made her withdraw into herself. But she also had good days, days where she smiled again, played without fear, and started to reclaim her childhood. Sarah watched her daughter and knew they were on the right path. It was painful, exhausting, and at times, overwhelming. But nothing was more important than Emily's safety and well-being. Months passed, and while the legal battle continued, Sarah focused on helping Emily heal. She made sure her daughter knew that none of this was her fault. She reassured her that she was loved, protected, and that her voice had power. Therapy became a crucial part of their routine. At first, Emily struggled to open up completely, but with time, she found a way to express her feelings. Through art, storytelling, and safe conversations, she started to release the emotions she had been forced to bury for so long. Her nightmares became less frequent. Her laughter became more genuine. Slowly, she was reclaiming her life. Sarah, too, found herself changed. She had once been a woman who overlooked small signs, who hesitated in the face of uncertainty. But now, she was stronger, more aware, and unafraid to stand up for what was right. She dedicated time to educating herself about child safety, advocating for awareness, and supporting other parents who had been through similar struggles. One day, Emily hugged her tightly and whispered, "Thank you for listening to me, Mom." Those simple words meant everything. They were a reminder that even in the darkest moments, love and protection could create light. Sarah knew the journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges ahead, legal battles, emotional wounds that took time to heal, and the effort of rebuilding a new life. But they had already taken the hardest step, believing, acting, and standing together as mother and daughter. Emily's story is one of courage, survival, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. It's a reminder that when a child speaks, we must listen. No hesitation. No doubt. just unwavering belief and action. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every voice matters. Every child deserves to be heard.